Tuli ku Parliament n'omukulembeze w'eggwanga Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert Bobi era nga kyogera kati President eyalondebwa bannayuganda amaze okuba nga atuuka ku Parliament naye ng'oyinza obuuza nsonga ki President w'eggwanga aze kusomebwa alternative budget ng'eno ekulembeddwamu omukulu Leader of Opposition omukulu Honorable Joel Ssenyonyi n'ababaka ab'enjawulo abamuwerekeddeko wano ku Parliament era ensonga etambulira ddala bulungi. President
borrowing and corruption have put immense pressure on our economy. The high cost of
okujja ate ayanirize n'okuwuliriza budget nga bw'ebadde esomwa nga bw'ebadde egenda mu maaso kituwadde amaanyi kitusenvuddeko ne tugamba nti tomanya wabaawo ekyenjawulo ekijja nekwatagana ey'omuggundo eyinza okuba nga enaatera okutuuka. Nenga baganda bange mikwano gyange embeera bweti bweri ku Parliament olunaku olwaleero nga President w'abantu President eyalondebwa bannayuganda omukulembeze omulungi Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert Bobi amaze okuba nga atuuka ate mu bungi obw'ekitalo ne mukwano omungi. Mwebale nnyo mwenna abawerekeddeko President abazi ne President Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert Bobi abeerekereza emirimu gyammwe ne mujja okuba nga tuwuliriza alternative budget eno egenda mu maaso. Kambayo embeera nga bweri wano ku Parliament nga President Kyagulanyi Ssentamu Robert Bobi atuuka.
And then that has to come through a supplementary budget. This drama has got to stop. We've got to enhance domestic revenue mobilization by closing tax loopholes and enforcing compliance in high-value sectors like gold mining. While every Ugandan pays their fair share of tax, there are people who don't pay taxes in this country. Ordinary people that sell little things in their shops downtown, you see KCCA running after them. Our theme for this year's alternative budget priorities is combating corruption, the effective way to sure service delivery. I believe that with all of my heart. For us to have effective service delivery in this country, one of the things we need to tackle is corruption. We lose over 10 trillion shillings per year to corruption. That's about a third of what URA collects. Meantime, they don't even hit their targets. Just think about how many hospitals that money can build, how many roads across the country that 10 plus trillion shillings can fix and build. How many schools? How many factories? We have a lot of unemployment in this country. How much can that money do? So that's why we are saying that combating corruption is sure way to effective service delivery. That's the only way. Because even that money which is available for service delivery is stolen. We've got to improve budget transparency and public financial management systems to ensure effective resource allocation. Let me talk a bit about health. Uganda's health sector faces significant challenges, including underfunding. Only 6.1% of the national budget is availed. Of course, there is inadequate infrastructure under the same and shortages of health workers. Ladies and gentlemen, we have one doctor per 25,000 people. No wonder people die unnecessarily. We've got stockouts of essential medicines, and that affects 40% of health facilities, while maternal mortality remains high at 336 deaths per 100,000 live births. Non-communicable diseases are rising, accounting for 33% of hospital admissions. And mental health services are severely underfunded, with 75% of patients untreated. Emergency response systems are weak, with only one ambulance per 200,000 people. Imagine that. This government, in its previous manifestos, promised the country an ambulance system across the country. But today, it is members of parliament that have got to buy ambulances. Why? Because you have an absentee government. Why should that be your role as a member of parliament? That you buy an ambulance and take care of that health situation. Government has got to do that. And that's what we are saying we would do had we been in power. We propose the following actions. One, we've got to eliminate medicine shortages by partnering with local pharmaceutical manufacturers. And that money can be availed. We've got to increase funding for primary health care through a 5% levy on luxury goods. This is doable. We've got to reduce maternal mortality by deploying 100 mobile maternal health clinics in rural areas so that our mothers stop dying while trying to bring forth life. We've got to address health worker shortages. And this can be done severally. One, offering, for example, 1,000 scholarships for medical and nursing students. It is doable. We've got to combat non-communicable diseases through nationwide screening. And we can do this in even 500 health centers. We've got to strengthen emergency response. This is doable. We've got to expand mental health services by training at least 500 community health workers and establishing 100 mental health units today. This is a critical challenge in our country, ladies and gentlemen. And I know sometimes when you think about mental health, you're thinking of, as people refer to it, mad people. No, people are struggling. We need to take care of this. We need to implement enhanced mosquito control programs to complement ongoing malaria control efforts. There's no reason why in 2025, if you have a serious government in place. Let me talk about Kampala Capital City Authority. The Omlord is here. And we also have our shadow minister in charge of Kampala, the Honorable Balimwezo Ronald Nsubuga. Ladies and gentlemen, Kampala faces a severe strain from rapid urbanization, with rural urban migration and population growth overwhelming the available infrastructure and services. The city grapples with a poor road network, chronic flooding due to inadequate drainage. Recently, we lost nearly 10 people in a one-day's flooding alone in Kampala here. Uncollected solid waste causing health hazards and insufficient housing and social amenities. Budget constraints limit KCCA's ability to address these issues, compromising education, healthcare, and economic productivity. Government said it was taking over the administration of Kampala, and they said they're going to do a good job. So they are in charge, literally. We have political leaders, and I've had some ministers say, but well, the opposition is the one that is in charge of the leadership of Kampala, from the mayor, members of parliament, division mayors, councillors, and so on. But who administers the city? Who really? You see the Lord Mayor there, assuming there was flooding in his area, he would also have to make a call to the technical wing and plead, please come and fix this issue. And it might take days on end for that to happen. So as government, you said you are taking over to fix this issue. You have failed miserably, as is expected. We've got to improve urban planning and zoning to curb haphazard development. We've got to expand and upgrade road infrastructure to reduce congestion. Modernize waste management systems, including recycling initiatives. There's no reason why garbage should be killing people in this day and age. Just think about it. That a heap of garbage, kasasiro, kills people in this day and age. We are very unserious as a country. And yet we know what to do. We've got to rehabilitate drainage systems to prevent flooding. We don't know who issues these permits and approvals. Buildings keep coming up every single day. Drainage is not taken care of. We've got to invest in social services such as education and healthcare facilities, and also promote affordable housing projects to address the question of slums. Many of our ordinary folks live in a very debilitating state. When you go to some of those slum areas, no wonder they are always sick with one ailment after another. And it is fixable if you are committed as a government. That's what we would do. Of course, it seems to be rocket science to the people in charge currently. Let me talk a bit about presidential affairs. The Office of the Presidency faces systemic governance challenges, including financial indiscipline. 488% budget increments for classified expenditures. Let me repeat that. 488% budget increments for classified expenditures. Now, every country ought to have a classified budget, but ours is ridiculously unexplainable. It keeps growing by the day, and you cannot justify it. And that's why we're saying that's the channel of corruption. Money for the people in charge. Because even when we are to go at war or to involve ourselves in military operations, for example, UPDF is in Sudan, South Sudan. They had to come for a separate budget for that. So these huge trillions in classified, what exactly do they do? It does not make sense because there is a budget for defense that caters for all of these different things. And you see, the challenge about classified budgets is you and I don't get to scrutinize them. And that's a cover they use to steal taxpayers' money. This nonsense has got to stop, ladies and gentlemen. That's the only way we can have money for effective service delivery. Because government keeps crying and saying, well, there is no money. There is money. There is money, but it is put in the wrong places. We've got bloated administrative structures with duplicated agencies, wasteful expenses on RDCs and their multiple deputies. You have an RDC, deputy RDC, assistant RDC, and a plethora of structures therein. Poor budget performance with irregular supplementary allocations and persistent corruption, despite anti-graft public trust and fiscal responsibility. These are some of the things we propose to deal with these issues. We've got to streamline the presidency's administrative functions to eliminate redundancy. There are many people that are hired therein, friends, relatives, in-laws, outlaws of the president. You find them somewhere in the structure there. Doing what? Nothing. And yet they're earning plenty of money. We've got to stop this. We've got to reduce wasteful expenditure on redundant offices that are duplicated, such as RDCs, deputy RDCs, assistant RDCs. We've talked about this. We've got to implement transparent financial management systems for classified expenditure. Yes, it is classified, but one, let it be justifiable. And two, let it make sense. There's got to be a form of accountability in that regard. Foreign affairs. Uganda lacks a coherent foreign policy with outdated mission charters that have been unchanged since 2014. Imagine that. And weak consular services. Thousands of migrant workers, especially in the Middle East, face exploitation, confiscated passports, and unpaid wages, with minimal embassy support. Unstructured labor agreements hinder labor export growth. We implore that this is done. One, that we develop a comprehensive and updated foreign policy framework. And you find our alternative in that big compendium. Do find time and read it, ladies and gentlemen. We've got to expand and modernize consular services to offer better support to Ugandans abroad. We've got to establish enforceable labor agreements to protect migrant workers. These are Ugandans, even when they're out of this country. Why should we abandon them? And we've got to rationalize diplomatic missions to optimize costs and impact. Justice and constitutional affairs. I'm just giving a summary of some of the sectors that are in that big compendium. You'll find time and read the others. Uganda's justice system faces a deep crisis marked by weak legal frameworks, systemic human rights violations, limited access to justice, high crime rate, and the collapse of the rule of law. The government has deliberately undermined judicial independence, leading to a constitutional crisis. Corruption remains rampant with low recovery of stolen public funds, while security structures fail to protect citizens. These failures, ladies and gentlemen, threaten social stability and economic progress. This is what we must do. One, strengthen judicial independence by increasing its funding and reducing executive interference. You will hear Mr. Museveni say, you judges will not allow you to take us back to the old days and so on. What happened to independence? Let them operate as should be. We've got to expand legal aid programs to ensure access to justice for all citizens. and also enforce anti-corruption measures to hold officials accountable. Then enhance human rights protections through improved monitoring and enforcement mechanisms. Science and technology sector. The science, technology, and innovation sector in Uganda faces significant challenges, including widespread corruption